Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities in Miniature. Today we're going to do something different. We're going to do Obscurities in Literature, and I'm going to share with you one of my favorite treasures that I've had for a few years now. But this is超絶プラモ道. So this is the history of Aoshima model kits, and you can see them gracing the cover of this beautiful book. And on the back side, we've got all sorts of wonderful full color painted illustrations of all kinds of bizarreness. So if you're not familiar with Aoshima's model kits, while they did do a lot of licensed stuff in the 70s and 80s, primarily their thing was to do knockoffs of a lot of the popular brands at the time. And that's what this book is mostly focused on. There is a companion sister book that goes into more of the licensed stuff. And maybe we'll look at that if there's enough of an interest. But for today, I really want to focus on this one because growing up, there was a local hobby shop that was near my grandparents' house. And we used to go there pretty regularly. And the guy had bought out a Japanese collector store, whatever the case was. And we're talking about mid 80s, late 80s at this point. And he had no idea what any of this stuff was. And he didn't really care. And he basically would just sell it based on the size of the box. And I think the most expensive kits at that time were like $5 just because he wanted to clear space. He had so many. And he was a surly, cranky old man. And this book brims with nostalgia. So some of these kits might look kind of familiar to you. Goes into a little bit about the history of Aoshima here. We're going to save all of the writing and just let the pretty pictures do the talking. So the first one is their huge Gundam knockoff. And you can see here, I can remember building quite a few of these kits. We'll get to the nice pictures here. So here is their absolute Gundam knockoff. And they came in actually a couple of different scales from what I remember. This is the 176 scale. They have the big deluxe versions as well. And you have painted samples. These were all included in the instruction manuals I can remember seeing way back when. This is their GM knockoff. Chars. Actually, you know what? I had the Bison. This one I had. And it actually came with this cell sheet that you could actually paint yourself and, have a nice anime cell. And they always had these nice color guides excuse me, for painting it if you were into that. And so yeah, here's some of the other models in the line. And we're going to continue on. They had nice cool diorama bases. Those I never saw. Now here's one. We had some of this line. I don't think these were their actual Gundams, but this is more kind of Doug Ram era. You can see they've got like kind of tequila gunner walkers back there. Where is the one? Here he is, Belgurno. My younger brother built... No, I take that back. He bought this, and I ended up building it, and for years I got chastised because before any of us could read or know any words in Japanese, I wasn't paying attention to the directions, and I ended up building the legs backwards. So, yeah, they had this cool multi-part comic book that was included with them as well, with these awesome shot, bong, boing. We used to sit there and read them out loud with a video camera. So then we get into the more, I thought there was a Mazinga and Getarobo style, and this is obviously Dai Tetsujin looking. These I never came across, but it would have been cool. I just love all of the painted artwork. Then we get into the more real robots. Again, this is probably Doug Ram era. Now we're getting into the more Macross type stuff. Nice looking AT-AT knockoff. So yeah, you could see there's definitely a lot of influence. Dimension model, obviously super dimensional Macross. Fortress Macross. There's the super robot stuff. This was their big original character. And let's see if I can remember his name. Adaranger, I thought it was called. But anyway, you can see here his thing. And actually, Aoshima went back and made like a anniversary kit of him later on. But What's fun is they had all these weird combinations of parts of his where you could buy multiple versions of the same kit and put them all together and make all these weird contraptions. Here's the updated version. Yeah, here's what I was talking about. So they have all these little miniature kits that basically they parted out the robot, and then you can collect them all and you'll end up with some big fancy battleship as well. Speaking of battleships, they have their obvious space battleship Yamato knockoff here. And again, you can buy all these kits in pieces, and then they would combine together into a larger one. And then they would just recast the colors of them. Here we have the race car version of the Yamato. This is probably around the time that the Tamiya, was it the Tamiya RC slot cars? I don't know. And here we have the Super Mega Ship. If you buy all the different model kits, they combine together into one big hodgepodge. Some of these I can actually remember seeing in that store. I never bought any because they just were too ugly and hideous looking. But there's just so much of it. So most of this is, late 70s, early 80s that we're looking at in this book. And again, just gorgeous artwork on these. Thunderbird style, perhaps? I always liked this thing. That was a cool looking model. King Moguras. You can never have enough drill tanks, right? Some weird anime looking artwork. That's Babel too. Or at least it looks like it's trying to be. Help if I showed it. Oh, here we go. That should look familiar to a lot of people with the Zardoz floating head of Darth Vader there. These I can remember coming across myself. Comical robots. Add ATST walkers. Now we're getting into the Zoids era of stuff, which is interesting. It has a Bandai logo on it. Cars. Ooh, GoBot Transformer knockoffs. Change Robo. I would have loved to have come across some of these. I can remember seeing old dinosaur kits when I was a kid, and I always wanted to build some, and I never did. And I actually had a couple of Spectreman and Ultraman kaiju models. But I always wanted the dinosaurs. Now these are pretty cool. And then they took the same exact kit and then just cut it in half and then turned it into a slot car racer. Random koalas and aliens. I came across one of these in a Mandarake before. Ooh, and here we have SD Gundam knockoffs. I mean, that is absolute, just a total legit swipe at one. Now this is pretty cool. Let's make model kits of stereo systems and fans, and then we have a bunch of manga in the back that was included in a lot of these instruction booklets. And a lot of it is very amateurish in its art, unfortunately. But there is a certain nostalgia for that style of art, I guess. Especially for those of us that grew up with it. So yeah, definitely an interesting book. Definitely something that has a lot of fond memories. I did build a lot of this stuff growing up and was around it quite often. Even though it was past its prime, like I said, these were probably a lot of the kits in this book were, I'd say, early 80s, late 70s, and I started digging up this stuff probably in the mid to late 80s, early 90s. So it was always fun when you would open some of these bags and the plastic would just disintegrate as you tried to take it out of the wrapper. But definitely some fun stuff here. That is a total ripoff of Daitorn 3. Wow. So yeah, I didn't even flip through everything, but I can sit there and go through every page. But definitely an interesting book, and hopefully you enjoyed this little excursion into something different. With that said, this has been High Lord Tamerlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye.